So earlier this week, I took it upon myself to craft together a stasis weapon tier list for PvE here in Destiny 2, and if you missed it, check the link in the description. While making that video, I uncovered a newfound respect for stasis as a whole in this game, and really grew to love the subclass in general as I was gathering footage for each weapon across all three characters. Admittedly though, as a Titan main, I put a lot more effort into my Titan stasis build than the others for whenever I was testing those weapons out, and I got tons of comments both on that video and during my live streams here on YouTube about what build I've been using. Well, that's what today's video is all about, as we go over the only Stasis Titan build you will ever need for PvE here in Destiny 2. Subscribe for more PvE guides like this one, leave a like on the video to support the content, and let's jump into this. Also, before we jump too deep into the content today, my advanced code demonjoefrance is now active for 30% off on their site for this weekend. If you're looking for a way to support the channel and get something in return, check the link in the description, and shout out to Bjorn on Twitter for this massive freaking order, man. I really appreciate it. Alright, let's finally talk Behemoth Titan. The build in today's video isn't going to be the kind that you only use in a select few scenarios. You know, like here's a good raid build, here's a good GM build, blah blah blah, no. Today's build is going to be the only Behemoth build that you're ever going to need for any kind of PvE content that you load into. A day 1 raid? Well, this one has you covered. GM Nightfall? It's great there too. What about for bounty farming patrol dregs? Well, you get the picture. So what exactly makes this build so damn versatile? Well, it's going to come down to an exotic chess piece, your favorite stasis weaponry, and some elemental well mods. So let's take a look at the build at hand, and then I'll explain what it does in actual gameplay scenarios as we go along. First up, let's talk the exotic armor, and that's going to be the hoarfrost Z. If you haven't already unlocked it, you'll find it inside the Legend and Master Lost sectors when chest armor is in rotation, and this armor comes with the perk Glacial Fortification. When using your stasis subclass, your barricade becomes a wall of stasis crystals that will slow nearby targets. Standing behind this barricade will grant you and your allies increased reload speed, stability, and range. This is going to be the cornerstone of our build as we turn this exotic into something we can use offensively, defensively, and as a means to have a permanent 25% damage increase to all of our stasis weapons. More on that in a bit. To ensure that we have our class ability on the least amount of cooldown possible, make sure you have a high resilience stat, which most of you probably already have, and also swap your Titan Barricade over to Rally in the subclass menu if you haven't already, as this is going to set it for a lower cooldown. Now that we have our exotic and we've taken measures to lessen its regen, let's talk about how we turn this armor piece into a deadly weapon via mods. First up, let's talk about the most important mod in this build, an absolute foundational piece, Elemental Shards, which I have here on my gauntlets. This mod will allow us to convert stasis shards into elemental wells for when we pick them up. In order to get stasis shards, let's go into our subclass and equip the Tectonic Harvest aspect, which will give them to us whenever we shatter a stasis crystal. Sure is convenient that our class ability now creates those, huh? Since these stasis crystals are going to be very important for our build, I also equipped glacier grenades off to the left here, as well as the Howl of the Storm aspect, which will give our melee ability the means to create crystals as well. This way, every single ability in our arsenal is going to be creating these crystals, which is huge for us to get stasis shards consistently. Going back to the mods here on the gauntlets, I also have Grenade Kickstart alongside Elemental Shards for the obvious grenade cooldown reduction. Moving on over to our chest piece to take a look at the mods there, I have my usual stat boost and resist mods, and slotted at the end I have Font of Might. This mod will give us a 25% damage boost for 10 seconds when picking up an elemental well, and in our case, stasis shards that we get from breaking the crystals we create. Now, a 10-second buff to our damage output is great and all, but 10 seconds is kinda cringe, so let's go ahead and double that right quick. Taking a look at our helmet, we're going to equip the mod Elemental Time Dilation. This will increase the duration of our Font of Might buff for every Font of Might we have equipped. So at its base level, we're going to have just a 2-second increase to make it 12 seconds total, but going on over to the leg armor, we'll equip another Font of Might, and moving on over to our class armor, we'll have one last font to give us our 25% damage buff for a total of 20 seconds. I also slapped some bomber mods here for our grenades since we'll be popping our class ability quite a bit, and going back to some of the other mods I skipped talking about, I have Better already equipped on my leg armor, so any orbs of power we pick up will heal us, and to go alongside this I have Harmonic Siphon on my helmet, which can generate those orbs. Anyways, with Time Dilation and 3 Font of Mights, we have an increased timer for our damage buff that we'll be able to accomplish some pretty nutty things with. Take this clip of a 𝘕𝗔𝗿𝗄𝗃 damage phase for example. Here I'm using the exact build we've been going over, and right before damage starts I pop my class ability to summon a stasis wall behind my fire team. I then smash one of the crystals, instantly giving me a 25% buff to all stasis weapon damage, and use my triple tap firing line 𝗕𝗓𝗏 to absolutely lay into 𝗨𝗏𝗃. Font of Might plus firing line is 45% more damage than what the base reads can put out, and that's not even counting a Well of Radiance or potential Lumina user in the fire team. Now, there are other means to get stasis wells, like summoning your fire team running the Supreme Wellmaker mod, and then spawning them whenever they pop their super. But the thing about this build is that it's all about self-sufficiency and being able to do everything yourself. This example in a fire team is only a minor example of what this build can do, because what we're really looking at is not a build that's only going to grant you insane consistent DPS, but a build that's going to provide that boost while also deleting every single enemy that comes into contact with you or your fire team members. So going back to the subclass, this is how we're going to make that happen. First up, Whisper of Fissures. This will increase the damage and size of the burst for our stasis crystals when we destroy them. Then we have Whisper of Conduction. This is going to make getting that Font of Might buff much more consistent, as you won't even need to try to pick up the stasis shards that drop, as they'll track to you instead. Next up, we have Whisper of Rending. This states that kinetic weapons will do increased damage to crystals and frozen targets, which is very good for us to destroy the Hoarfrost crystals, glacial walls, and our Howl of the Storm wave. And lastly, we have Whisper of Shards, which is going to give us a nice bump to resilience, plus boost our grenade recharge when picking up shards, which again is going to be a 24/7 thing with this build. Once all of this is put together, you have a build which is going to excel in DPS scenarios inside raids via font stacking, survivability in any situation via the walls you can form between you and your enemies, and ad clear via your grenade, melee, and even your class ability crystals thanks to fragments like fissures and rending. All it really comes down to at this point is the kind of weaponry you want to bring with you. Personally, if you watched my tier list video, you know that I'm very high on 𝗿𝗏𝗱𝗄𝗏 right now. This is going to transcend your ad clear and give an extra means to melt down boss-like enemies thanks to the catalyst ability it has. For your energy slot, anything can really work here, as you could go with double special since ammo economy isn't much of an issue on trace rifles anymore. Wave frames or blinding nades are good here, but a run-of-the-mill SMG couldn't hurt either if you want to play things safe. And lastly, for your heavy slot, 𝗕𝗓𝗏𝗏 is a must if you're inside raid content. But otherwise, you have picks like the Zephyr Sword, which I will admit, me putting this in D tier for the tier list video is the biggest L that I've ever taken, and I will remedy this when the weapon comes back during the Dawning. I take my ranking back. Zephyr is incredibly strong with Cold Steel in this build, and I really hope y'all grind one out whenever the Dawning comes back around. But aside from that, I also found that Chain of Command is a very good option, as Demo is going to give you instant reloads when throwing a nade, which you're going to have up even before your magazine depletes. And again, Demo is going to give you that grenade energy, which is going to give you just crazy ad clear. I mean, you're looking at an LMG that's just feeding you huge bursts of crystals that's just going to clear rooms. That said, this Behemoth build is my personal favorite build in the game right now, and is incredibly fun regardless of the content you're playing. A permanent 25% damage buff, constant abilities which just make a joke of any enemies in the area, and really great survivability given the separation you can create in dire situations with your crystals. What we have is truly a jack of all trades and master of all on our hands, and if you'd like to give this build a try, I'll feature the dim link down in the description. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, that is the only Stasis Titan build you will ever need for PvE here in Destiny 2. Let me know what you all thought of today's video and what you may potentially change with what I showed off today. I mainly focus on weapons when it comes to my content here on YouTube, so I fully expect that there may be some areas that could potentially be improved upon with what I showed you all today. That said, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and let me know if you'll be giving this build a go sometime in your future endeavors down in the comments below. Anyways, as always, thank you all so much for watching the content up until this point, as it goes a long way to support the channel. And before we end off, as always, shout out to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members that you can see on screen here. We have Onrock, Admus, Vile, John, Noel, Homebase Serenity, Boomer Noob, Don, 𝘆cie𝗂'𝗿𝗄, Austin, Cinco, and Galumia. Then we have Peak, Hank the Tank, Ben McClellan, Brian, Angel, Mayhem Gaming, and Clear 𝘕𝗵𝗄, as well as Austin and Serenity once more. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.